Hi, and welcome back to the Switch Show. I'm Malisa Chinoy. Whew, this has been so long. I missed you guys. I think to the many people that that have listened in my absence. Thank you all for listening. And yeah, I'm back. This was a bit unplanned, but also planned. I plan to take the planned part was that I plan to take a hiatus to stay away for a little bit, kind of center myself, build some things for myself, find structure. And also I was kind of dealing with some stuff, personal stuff. Anyway, not really, it's not that deep anyway, but yeah, I had to put some things in order, and whilst at that, I wanted to be able to give my full attention and give 110% to the podcast. And so after the last episode I recorded and published, I decided to take a break, which I've said I was going to be more, informative with my hiatus, like, hey, I'm taking a hiatus. But even on Instagram, we're barely active, and that's on me. There's nobody that's to be blamed for it. But yeah, we're back, and I'm going to be rolling out episode hopefully I wanted to say bi-weekly, but 2 days every week. That's Tuesdays and Fridays. So this episode might come later than a Friday. You might be listening on a Friday, and it might be published on a Friday, it might be published Saturday, or even a Tuesday. But yeah, at the time of recording, it's a Friday afternoon. And yeah, I just wanted to come on here and talk about a couple of things that I have been doing since I went on a break. So yeah, I think I'm a hermit, and I recently found out what the word meant. That a hermit is someone who goes on this spiritual journey, more or less like self-discovery alone. And another definition is someone who takes time away from social gatherings and stuff. But yeah, I think I'm a hermit, and I don't think it is, personally, I don't think it is a planned thing. I just feel like that has been my personality for a little bit. So when I was much younger, I used to be involved in a whole lot of things. So I didn't really have the time to step back from society, from social gatherings. So I was always overstimulated, and I'm going to talk about something once I finish this train of thoughts. Yeah, I was always overstimulated, and I was always in need for a recharge. Of course, naps and frequent rests, I guess, in between helped, but those are physical means of recharging. There was also a need for mental recharge. So when I eventually had the ability or had the freedom to make certain choices for myself on how I can interact with the outside world, I started craving more solace. I started craving more solitude, is what I wanted to say. Yeah, so I started craving alone time, and that has been the journey for me. That has been what it is for me, starting a podcast, starting an online presence. I don't even have an online presence, but it's relatively low. I only use social media, just to check on people, see what my faves are doing and stuff like that. But I should be more, active there. I should. I'm not saying I think I should. I should. There's nothing else to that. But yeah, I should. And yeah, speaking of overstimulation, the reason that was the one thing I wanted to talk about. I feel like the coming generation is so overly stimulated, and I'll tell you why. So I'm staying with my parents, and one thing that happens when you stay in an African home with mom, dad, your siblings, especially in we don't have summer in Nigeria per se. We only have raining the rainy season and the dry season. That's basically, but we tend to call this summer with the Western world. So during the summer holidays, you usually have relatives, little relatives come. And I have little relatives staying with me. I had to, run away from the chaos and everything. And I found out that these kids are overly stimulated. And it's going to be a problem for the next generation, or for their generation, and the generation that continues after them. And why it is a problem is, don't get me wrong, these kids have an abundance of resources, an abundance of information, and that is a good thing, because you would have to be willfully ignorant to be in the dark on certain matters and certain issues, because the world is going to flash them at your face every now and then, probably every 2 seconds. But that is also a problem, because there is such an abundance of information, there is such an abundance of resources, unlike what we had growing up or what other generations had growing up, that these kids are so stimulated. And the reason I'm saying this is, there's the TV, they have their cartoon shows and whatever, and then they also have their tablets. But then they are so bored from watching cartoons, they're so bored from playing with their tablets, and now they don't even know what to do. So back then, for us, we had multiple ways of entertaining ourselves. If the TV wasn't on, we had, in Nigeria, we had things like police and thief. With your rubber bands and with your folded papers, pick who is the police, pick who is the thief, and everybody goes mental, everybody goes haywire, And then there were things like poshu poshu, which if there's anyone that's listening that doesn't understand, probably asking Nigerian. So poshu, in essence, you just pursue. What do you just say as pursue? But we call it poshu. What it is in essence is, there is a catcher. I'll call him a catcher. Someone who is meant to catch people, and the way you catch people is by touching them. So whoever gets touched starts running. It's just like tag, the game of tag. I think that's the one that the Westerners do a lot. Tag, where you tag, you're it, and then you start chasing. That was, the Nigerian version was poshu. We had other things, we had Sue, we had Ludo, we had 10-10, we had even blanket forts. So if our parents didn't allow us go play football with our friends out on the streets, we could come inside and make blankets forts, and the blankets in wrappers, towels. No, not towels, towels. Yeah, we had all these things, and it just gave us this sense of, as kids, we probably did not understand, but as you grow into adulthood, you start having this deep-seated appreciation for all the things you did as kids. And then to think that we are going to be the next generation of parents, and our children are going to, there's going to be such a disparity. There's going to be such a gaping difference between what we saw as fun and what they see as fun. And not only that, there's going to be such a large gap between the generations, because quite literally, there's the millennials, there's the Gen Zers, and then once the millennials and the Gen Zers grow and become parents, they're probably parenting like Generation Alpha. Probably after Generation Alpha is Generation Omega or Generation Beta. I do not know how they come up with the generation names, but there's going to be such a gap, and now you're going to have to compete, more or less, for your kids' attention. You're going to have to compete for your kids' attention, and you're going to be competing against the internet. You're going to be competing against the digital age. In essence, you're going to be competing against technological evolutions. You're going to have to keep up with the trend. The same thing our parents are trying to do, or they tried to do, and they struggled in their wake. We're going to have to do that. So seeing these things, seeing my little cousins run around saying they're bored, and there's the TV, there's their tablets, they have what they would see as their means of entertainment, or their media of entertainment, and still they are bored. I don't think I think the word boredom, I first used the word bored probably when I was in secondary school. Maybe I was like 12, because I don't think the idea of boredom wasn't really, it was more or less like a foreign concept to me. And the first time I got bored, I'm pretty sure was in class, because the teacher was just rambling and rambling and rambling, and that's typical. You get bored over time. But other than that, I was constantly entertaining myself. There were always things to keep me entertained. It's either I'm entertained by the adults laughing at jokes and I'm just laughing along with them, even though I understand nothing. I just find that entertaining, or I'm asleep. But well, I don't know. It's still a couple of years before we become parents, so I don't want you guys to think about parenthood yet. And I hope I'm not giving anybody baby fever, because that's a real thing. It's a real thing, and trust me, you don't want to go down that rabbit hole. And now, speaking of things that I did while I was away, I attended my first stage play. My first stage play. So prior to that, I think it was in I was 13 in GS3. And for people that don't understand what GS3 is, if you're listening and you do not understand what GS3 is, so basically, let me just run through. Nigerian secondary school system is split into two halves: junior secondary and senior secondary school. Junior secondary school is 1 to 3, senior secondary school is 1 to 3. So we just call it JS3, junior secondary 3, or junior secondary school 3, JSS3. Do you get that? I hope you do. So yeah, I was in JS3, and there was this play for the literature text that we were reading. I can't quite remember what text it was. I always think it's The Government Worker by some guy. I think his name was KK Chika Jerry or something. I can't really remember, but it was a really, really exciting read. It was really exciting to read as a 13-year-old, because the text was talking about, I think, political corruption, was talking about all sorts of things, majorly corruption, yeah, and how crazy the government and some governmental policies favor some rather and disfavor others, that train of thought. And yeah, so other than something relating to our literature text, I'd never been to a stage play. I've seen stage plays. I think I've had friends that have gone to stage plays, but it was never really anything exciting to me per se. And I always saw stage plays as, because some of the plays I had seen, or I'll call them plays, but some of this, like drama that they do in, during church programs and children variety programs in church, they're always so, permit me to say, half-assed. They're always so lackluster. The script is communicated vocally. You do this. So once this person is coming in, you jump inside. It's just from mouth to ear to action, that type of thing. And basically, that was what I was used to. I had been, if you call it a play, I was in a play when I was 9. Was it when I was 9? Was it? Yeah, when I was 9, and I played. That's so funny. I played a dad in that play, and of course, my classmates were obviously my children, which was very, very, very cute, very hilarious. My opening scene, I put a toothpick in my mouth. I tied a wrapper around my waist. I wore a singlet, and I held what was an A4 paper, but I was supposed to hold this, just a single sheet of A4 paper, and I was holding it like as if I was reading my morning newspaper. And my line, I can't forget the first line. The first line I said was, "Old soldier never die." And immediately I said it with the microphone. The whole hall erupted into laughter and applause, because I was so cute, so tiny, but I had a big head, and everybody was laughing because I was like, "Old soldier never die," trying to deepen my voice and stuff like that. And yeah, that was basically, that was my experience beforehand. And so I saw this play, an amazing play. I hope they do it again. And I hope that if you're listening to this, you can go follow them and keep your eyes peeled for what they do. So Classic World Creations did a play, and the name of the play was Tulips and Thorns. So I'm going to tell you, do a bit of a rundown of the play. So basically it explores love, the love and colleague dynamic. I think I'm using strange words to explain it, but it explores love between colleagues at a law firm named Crest and Co. And how the bosses used to be in love, and then the man chose his job. The man chose his job or his career over the love of his life. And then because that aspect of his life went left, he started projecting the same fears onto the younger colleagues, telling them not to date or not to be in a relationship not to be in a relationship with your colleague, which I understand. I think human resources will usually talk about it like that. If you want to have relations with your colleague, you shouldn't bring it to work because it's a human resource violation, But all in all, the deal was that if you were going to be with someone, you had to leave the company. One of you had to sacrifice your spots in the company and go elsewhere. I'm doing a bad job at narrating this. I'm doing a bad job at narrating the synopsis, but trust me, it was an exhilarating experience, end to end. I wrote kind of a mock review. I won't call it a review. I just wrote, like praises. I was just writing praises, lauding how amazing it was, how amazing the play was. I gave it a 9.2. I don't usually, the movies I've watched, I've never rated an actual movie a 9. And I'm not a film critic. Don't come for me, because I'm also going to be a filmmaker in the near future. So don't come for me. I'm not a film critic, but it was such an amazing play. Exploring all the character arcs and the character developments. One of the most exciting characters was Veronica. Veronica was the office errand. She had a dirty past, and then she turned her life around and became an office errand. And from being an office errand, she became a paralegal at Crest & Co. So it was just an amazing play from end to end. And if you're listening to this, anyone, check out Classic World Creations on Instagram. They did not pay me. Before you guys say, they paid you. They did not pay me. When I like something or when I love something or someone, I'm definitely going to talk about it. I'm definitely going to talk about it, because there is such a thing that your love or appreciation for something does. Permits whatever noise you're hearing. I try to get as quiet as a place as I possibly could, and I hope there are no much external interferences. But yeah, anyway, the thing about it was just so beautiful to watch. I would say it was just so beautiful to watch. You got mad at maybe the way the character portrayed himself, but then you just loved their charisma, their courage, the composure, everything, the dialogue. Oh, beautiful. And I feel like, I don't know if any of them is gonna hear this, but I'm going to put it out on my Instagram story once this episode is out, and I hope that they listen to this episode. But the writer, okay, I can call her my friend, but Jennifer Owabo, and then there's Jennifer Ihanacho, who was also part of the crew. These are the people I went to support. They were the writers. Basically, they put so much effort into their writing, like the punchlines, the lines, man, I could sit here and talk for hours on how exciting it was. And why it was a breath of fresh air was because I stayed a long time away from people, just maybe minor interactions in church. Maybe I see my mentor in church, who is also my discipler. I see him in church and we just get to talk. We have this conversation for a long time. And that was a long time ago. We hadn't really talked in a while, so having a conversation with him about career, about wanting to pursue a career path, and then after the conversation, proceeding to going to see a play, and not just seeing just another play, but feeling what the characters are feeling and relating in some way to their, they were dropping sick bars for lines, relating in some way to what they were saying. It was just a breath of fresh air for someone who had taken time away from, even though I was, posting on my Instagram stories once in a while. I'll text people, so that I don't come off as rude. I still wasn't really one to re-engage with the public, and then that gave me more or less like an opportunity to interact with the public. I also made 2 friends, which is very good for me, very, very good for me. So if you listen to this, should I do a name drop? Yeah, I hope you guys listen. It's okay, I'm Melvin. You guys were amazing. You guys were fantastic. Thank you for making my day. If you guys listen to this, I hope you do. I sure hope you do. But if you don't listen to this, I'll probably tell you that I give you a shout out on one of my episodes. But yeah, you guys made the whole experience an experience. So yeah, I'm slowly but surely re-entering the public, I guess, slowly but surely. And yeah, so if you have any stage plays, if you know of any stage plays that I can attend, please let me know. Thank goodness for Spotify now, so you have the opportunity to make comments. We're not on YouTube just yet. Hold on, there are plans. I'm making plans, and please, if you want to support us, reach out to me. My personal IG page at Malise Chinoye, or you can reach out to at theswitch.show. If you want to support us in any way, please reach out to us. Would be extremely glad. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of options for monetization. There isn't any option for monetization through Spotify for Nigerians, so it's a bit of a hassle, getting that type of support from people. But if you want to support us, so you have a means to reach out to us at theswitch.show, and you can also reach out to at Malise Chinoye. I most likely would be more responsive at Malise Chinoye, so you can reach out to me personally if you want to support, and I'll be extremely glad if you do. So thank you for listening thus far, and thank you for coming back to listen. It's been a while, and I've been thinking if I wasn't good at this podcast thing again, but I remember that I've been doing it for nearly 4 years, even though I've been rather inconsistent. But yeah, thank you for listening. Like we say, or we do, not like we say, I'm trying to make that a thing, but maybe you guys can make it a thing, so that when we have a hangout, or when we eventually roll out merch, we can have Flip the Switch and Illuminate on the back, on the front, whatever it is. There are a lot of plans in the works, and by the grace of God, we're gonna roll them out pretty soon. So yeah, Flip the Switch and Illuminate. Follow us, like, subscribe, share, do what it is you need to do to spread the gospel. Yeah, and I'll see you guys on the next episode. Ciao. Peace.